book was The Lost Flower Children by Janet Taylor Liesel. Is that, you think?
Lyle, maybe?
Lyle? Maybe you don't pronounce it as. We could look that up. So let's just start off by saying, did you enjoy the book?
Yes. I enjoyed the book.
What did you like about it?
I like when I was trying to decide, were the flower children really real? Did it really happen? Then I got excited when they kept finding more pieces to the tea set. And that's when I got to the point where I couldn't put it down.
Okay.
And then also I find it's one of those books that, if you could say it this way, dances over and back across the line between like imagination and real world. Like the imagined world and real world. And it just kind of weaves its way back and forth so that you're always guessing if it's magical or guessing if it's just real.
That's true.
And I think that's so important for little kids to feel that, you know, periphery of the imagined world kind of interacting with the periphery of the real world. So.
I really like the characters. I felt like they were realistic people. Like I loved Aunt Minty and how she at first seemed so kind of weak and unable to cope, but then she had this sort of hidden strength that I think came out as the story went on, and I enjoyed that. And also,
now I had trouble with the girl. Nellie wasn't so bad. I struggled with Olivia as a character because I kept looking for kind of a decision, that she would make a decision by the end of the book, or she would have some kind of, I don't know, I felt like she was just kind of existing throughout the book, and there were so many questions I had about her that I felt weren't answered. Like, how does she actually get over the grief of her mother? And I felt like, it showed that maybe through, you know, community and friends, having friends, she was able to do that. But she didn't make the decision to. I felt it was more just happened, and she had to also get over feeling like she was without her, Nellie wouldn't be able to survive. And that all happens.
Right.
But I don't see where she made the decision to.
Right.
So it's just, of all the characters, I love Aunt Minty, I love Nellie, but I had trouble with Olivia, and actually that's my illustration is the map of heaven, and I said for my sentence, I'm confused about Olivia. So we can get into this later, but but I love the characteristics of Olivia. Maybe it's just me, I had trouble understanding her.
I guess I kind of accepted her because I thought she was in such confusion about her mother's death and her role in the family.
Right.
I feel like she had become the mother.
Right.
And that because of that, but she wasn't really capable of it, and she didn't know how to do it, but she just felt this responsibility. And so that's, I guess, why I kind of gave her that characterization, some leeway of like this kind of confusion. She was confused. Maybe you're confused because she was confused about
maybe.
it.
Maybe.
That might go together. I thought Pop was kind of annoying because he just felt like he was saying, here are my kids, and I can't deal with this, and I'm just a kind of happy-go-lucky person.
Yes, you wanted to tell him, get your life together.
I wasn't sure about his grief. I didn't really see his grief, and maybe he was dealing with his grief by escaping from the family. I don't know, but I felt like he was not the parent I wanted him to be.
Right, me neither.
But Aunt Minty fortunately stepped in to provide that. Well, let's talk maybe about, Christy, some questions that you had some questions about the book.
Well, since we're talking about the grief and the loss of the mother, one of my questions was, how do you think the loss of Olivia and Nellie's mother affected Nellie?
It sounded like she was already a pretty challenging kid because the mother was the one who understood that she had to walk backwards up the stairs and whatever, all this stuff, and worked around her needs. So I guess I just felt like maybe those things became even more significant. She'd lost control of her family, like pain came and loss came, but she could control this stuff.
Right.
And so that just kind of hardened her desire to do things a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, I kept thinking about the age difference between the two children, about how Nellie was 5, and probably from the time she was 4 on, her mother was, because it was a slower death, like it was a medical death.
Yes.
It wasn't
She didn't go
a
to
sudden
the
death.
hospital.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for most of Nellie's life, it wasn't like she was with the adult, more adult-like mind dealing with this, whereas Olivia seems to be a little bit precocious. Was approaching it from a totally different, it affected her on a much deeper level than Nellie.
Right.
And so I kind of wondered how much, given Nellie's age and given the fact that it was this more involved death that took a longer time period,
Right.
how much of it she really understood.
Right.
You know?
Well, I do agree, because, on pages 3 and 9, it talks about the complication of Nellie. I do agree that the death probably made those complications more predominant, if it was the only thing that she could control. But the stuffed animals becoming her family, I think, was another way of her dealing with the grief and the loss of mom.
Well, and then in my summary, I had written a quote from where when Aunt Minty wants to have friends come over to play, then Nellie says, "We don't need anyone else, do we, Libby? Can't we just have each other and nobody else? That way no one can get left out." And so I read that as her fear of further loss. You don't want to get close to anybody else. We just need to cling to each other, because you're going to get hurt. People go away or they disappoint you, and you're going to end up getting hurt. So just stick together and take care of each other.
And she's so willful. It's kind of like that. I feel like she's saying, if I hold on tight enough, then I can control it,
Right.
And of course, when Jill, I think, was the girl who
Yes.
was about the same age, came as Olivia came over to play, and Nellie started throwing rocks at her.
Oh,
gosh, she was serious. She did not want anyone interfering.
Right.
But apparently that turned out to be for the best, because after she had that episode of rock throwing, she almost knocked out her sister, I guess, wasn't she? Was unconscious. Then she seemed to have changed. She was, it says something about she was a new person.
And actually, if I could bring up a question here, what do you think happened in that afternoon she spent in the garden alone? I mean, she was obviously in the dirt, like you said, she had dirt on her pants. And she changed. She wanted, from then on out, it was teacups. And so I was thinking that was kind of one of the moments where the book kind of blurred that line between, could it have been something fantastical or something real? Like, did she really just go sit there and cry and then feel like it's dark out here, it's lonely, I want to go back inside, I'm going to change? Or could we imagine, did the flowers start whispering to her? Did Aunt Minty's magical aura start you could just imagine the wind going through the flowers and Nellie kind of having thoughts about
well, maybe, and about friends, because those were friends. That was a garden of friends, those flowers. And so that sense of, it's maybe good to have a community and friends where, I could, as you're saying, the wind blowing through the flowers. And then to don't isolate yourself, maybe. Kind of a magical message.
Right.
Yeah, because we never get any information about that.
No. Just like the ending of the story, it's up to you.
What happens.
Right. Exactly. Other questions that we want to follow up now, or is that?
Well, no, we'll keep going. I have, my third question kind of ties into one of my inferences, so when we get to that.
What about connections, Julia? Did you have a connection?
Let's see. I have 3. We could talk about this one, that it's a text to self connection, and it was about the death and grief for a loved one. And when we're a little bit older, we know about the stages of grief, and I find it interesting seeing how the kids in the story are dealing with that grief, given their respective ages. And I was thinking back to, I've never had a loved one die that's been close to me. I've only been to one funeral. In that sense, it's kind of where most people have been to.
I would say, consider yourself.
A little bit more than that. I'm kind of just waiting for the time when there's one more. So death really affects me when I'm around it, because